When it comes to looking after or sustaining our mental, emotional, and spiritual health, or indeed when it comes to the healing process, I love using the analogy of having a toolbox of skills available to you and building up those tools as you get a little bit more resilient and stronger. And the reason I particularly like this analogy is, first of all, it lends itself to there being multiple tools required, and different ones are applicable at different stages of our life. Likewise, it also lends itself to it being an ongoing process. You don't just make one quick instant fix that is going to last you an entire lifetime. You have to carry that toolbox with you, and you have to apply it frequently and consistently in order to sustain what it is that you manage to achieve. And that means that you're not always going to use the same tools as everybody else. I mean, everybody's toolkit is very individual and unique to them. And again, when we try to emulate somebody else's way of doing things, we tend to find ourselves very frustrated and disappointed in ourselves, because we're like, well, it works for them, why doesn't it work for me? But when it comes to our mental and emotional health, it is so subjective. I mean, what we experience is the same as nobody else, and whilst there may be similarities, it's never going to be identical. And we need to really kind of go through a certain element of trial and error. We need to find what works for our lives, what works for us as an individual, even if that isn't what's currently trending, And it means sometimes taking ownership for your own life. It's not always going to be an easy choice. It's not always going to be the easiest option that you have to go with. And it's about having that adult and mature accountability that recognizes that, yes, we'd all love, for life to be plain sailing. We'd all love to be able to sit on the couch and stuff our faces with chocolate. But the reality is we don't allow ourselves to do that, or we shouldn't allow ourselves to do that. And I always like to compare it to having a child. I mean, your child is always going to want to do the thing that, goes against what you desire. So they never want to eat their vegetables. They never want to go to sleep on time. And yet we get them to, because we know it is good for them, and because we care for them, and because we love them. And yet when it comes to ourselves, oftentimes we're like, fuck it, I don't need to eat vegetables. I don't need to go to bed on time. The reality is we do, and it's recognizing that the more we make the optimum choices for our health, the more likely we are to have the resiliency to be able to come through really tough times, because life doesn't discriminate. It is always going to provide you with challenges. And if you're looking for easy street, well, then, you're not going to find it. You are going to be disappointed. However, the more you build and work on your resiliency, the less likely you are to be completely wiped when difficult times or when struggles or challenges come your way. And the more likely you are to be able to, I suppose, remain optimistic and positive about your life, but in a very realistic manner. And again, as I said, it's recognizing that a lot of the things that you need to apply as part of your care and as part of your practice aren't going to be the easy choices. It's creating awareness of the way in which you work against yourself, becoming very conscious and mindful of the way in which you think, and how oftentimes our thoughts can lead us into a place which isn't necessarily beneficial for us nor for anybody else. It's recognizing as well the importance of connecting with the right people that will nurture and nourish you, as opposed to people who may kind of feed a certain side of your desires but aren't necessarily beneficial to what it is that you want your life to reflect. It's also looking at basic things like getting 7 to 8 to 9 hours sleep. I mean, I'm only getting about 7 at the minute, and Jesus Christ, I'm really feeling the impact of that, because I'm just one of these people that needs 8 to 9 hours sleep a night. And I notice the difference in my mood. I notice the difference in my tolerance levels. I notice the difference in my overall enthusiasm. And it's about being very tuned into yourself and recognizing when something is a bit off, and taking responsibility for whatever it is that you need to do differently in order to improve your experience. It's about having a contemplative practice. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be meditation. Some people find the mindfulness or the flow experience of being really enraptured in what they're doing is enough for them to kind of feel that sense of oneness and stillness. But it's about finding time to be by yourself, to be in silence, and to try and observe your thought process a little bit so that you can recognize the way in which it just takes off and has a life of its own, and that you're not always being carried by that. You're not always being ruled by your cognitive experience. It's also important to practice bringing yourself back down into your somatic experience. I mean, we spend so much time up in our heads, and we don't spend half as much time as we should do in our hearts and listening to our intuition and listening to our inner guru and our inner guide, and that brings me around to prayer, or having some sort of a faith in a higher power. I mean, a lot of us have moved away from that sort of mindset, and yet we tend to confuse spirituality with religion. And spirituality is just believing that there is a better tomorrow and that there is something out there looking after you, and it can make such a significant difference to your overall well-being to have a faith and a trust in the unknown, because again, we thrive on thinking that we have certainty and that we have control, and the reality is we have very little. And when that rug is pulled out from under our feet, we really struggle. We really kind of lose a sight of who it is that we are, because we've been so dependent on applying this control and on knowing what the outcome is, and all of a sudden we're left with this uncertainty, and it can be intolerable for a lot of people, because we tend to utilize control as a way of feeling good, as a way of avoiding having to deal with our emotions, and it's just a way of numbing out. It's just a way of moving away from your authentic self, and we need to be able to come back to that. We need to recognize that there is no knowing for certain, that we have to be curious, that we have to embody a learning mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset in order to fully make the most of everything that we are presented with, being able to see other people's perspectives as opposed to always sticking with our own, being able to recognize that life is about what we can do for others as opposed to always looking after ourselves. And again, one surefire way to feel better from a mental and emotional level is to serve others in some way, shape or form, to demonstrate kindness outside of your own needs and outside of a need for recognition. And I suppose all of these things really impact on how good we feel, how much we can contribute as a person. And again, then there's the obvious ones. There's diet, there's finding a way to be creative on a day-to-day basis, even if it's just building a bit of Lego, or whether it be writing a quick blog, or whether it be sitting down to a bit of music, but just finding small little ways to come back into the present moment and really be with yourself and really allow the creative juices to flow, because this is where so much of our inspiration comes from, and this is where so many of the answers that we assume we're going to find externally actually arise within us, and all of a sudden we find ourselves more at peace with not having all of the external fixes. Again, accountability is a big one as well. I mean, we tend to, as I said, we want all the answers, we want all the fixes, we want all the solutions, and we want them easily and we want them instantly, and that isn't how life is. We need to be very patient and tolerant with not knowing. We need to be able to, I suppose, endure things that are uncomfortable, and again, that's where resiliency comes from. It's not from avoiding feeling negatively, it's recognizing that you're going to feel negatively, and that oftentimes that's where the growth occurs, and that can sound a little bit condescending, but I guarantee you, anytime you come out the other side of adversity, you come out a very different person. Having somebody to talk to and connect with is huge, whether it be a therapist, whether it be your partner, whether it be your friend. I mean, we thrive on connection, so it's so important that we try to put it into place as frequently as possible. And moving our bodies wherever we can, whenever we can. I mean, they were designed for that, so we need to utilize them and to appreciate them. And if you can find your purpose, if you can find what makes you feel fulfilled, then life is going to look so much better. Hope everyone has a lovely day.